Jim Pfaff is standing by from the Conservative Caucus, former Chief of Staff to Tom Massey, who, by the way, had a beautiful moment just a couple of days ago. Am I taking this too nonchalantly? Do you think it moved the needle last night?
Well, it didn't particularly harm Donald Trump. I would not say that he knocked the ball out of the park. I think he had a lot of missed opportunities that he could have really nailed Kamala Harris. And so those were missed. But Kamala Harris lied through her teeth, and the American public that were watching it know how outrageously biased the whole approach was. You start with one inflation question, and then it's abortion and climate change and all these things, and then fact-checking Donald Trump, just like, these people have done now for more than a decade. So the American people notice that too.
Yeah, I don't think that's the thing, is that most of the people who watch this were in the tank for one or the other candidates. Period. That's just reality. The small handful of people who are undecided, I mean, good grief, stop day drinking. How are you still undecided? It didn't look like she moved the needle on undecideds. But then again, anything that doesn't mean faceplant for her is a victory. But to your point, what people who were watching did learn, it looked unfair. It looked like a rigged game. I don't care who you are. It looked like a rigged game. Every Democrat knows that was a rigged game. And in the undecideds, there's no way you come away from that thinking that there was anything close to fair or that you got good information. And you did learn that the Democrats do not care about the economy. They only care about abortion, climate change, and lying about Donald Trump and things he didn't say about Charlottesville. That's what they care about. I mean, I couldn't believe, honestly, how much time they wanted to spend on abortion, because those fact checks were flying on our side instantly and blanketing all social media. Geez, you would have thought that maybe you wanted to, move through that quickly so that we didn't absolutely stuff you, spinning it while it was happening.
Listen, the Democrats are the party of abortion. That really is and socialist economic policy are the singular things in combination, because the one isn't a thing. Like the abortion issue, it's huge, obviously. But my point is, it's such it's small legislatively compared to all the other legislation that they promote. But that's what they're about. That is who the Democrat Party is. But, there were two things that I noticed in this debate that I found very interesting. The first one is the way that they early on decided to set up a momentum for Kamala Harris, and they specifically did it because of the way that they presented the questions. But here's the second thing I don't hear anybody talking about that I noticed. They hardly ever did anything about the muted mic deal. They were allowing for wide open exchanges and to be there was a little muting that went on, but to be candid, what they did, the deal was made. Kamala Harris wanted to know, she wanted to be able to do what she was doing precisely last night. She was never shut off. I can't remember one time her mic was muted. There probably were a couple. They broke the rules. That's the point I'm making. Just like they did with her being the nominee right now, just like they've done with the lawfare that's been going on. I mean, the left and the media are determined to take this country over and to not allow any Republican or any conservative or anyone that's rationally thinking to be in political office.
Yes. Well, that was my main takeaway from this debate was that it wasn't a debate. It was the debasing. This was an utter middle finger to voters in America who would have tuned into that debate, still fantasizing that they can turn on ABC News and learn something, about policy or learn something about the positions of these candidates. That's the job of those moderators, was to allow us to learn something about what their policies are. And that's not what you learned, except, Kamala Harris is all about abortion. That was the thing that really pissed me off. It wasn't even that it was a 3-on-1 slugfest, because Trump should have seen that coming. It wasn't even that she repeated the lies over and over, because frankly, Trump should have seen that coming. And he could have easily dispatched with that, but he really didn't. So what made me mad was that it was as if we were not supposed to learn anything. We were only supposed to do what our betters said. And so that to me is yet another example of how the elites in this country are working to invert the very concept of self-governance. Don't even give us information. You just have to contend with us as voters until you don't have to contend with us as voters any longer. Give them a chance to seize total control, and they won't have to contend with having to worry about making their case to us. That's what it said to me. They are looking forward to the day when democracy actually dies.
Well, that's the governing structure that they want. I mean, listen, and there's not a politician, right, left, center, or however you want to whatever pigeonhole you want to put them in. There's no politician that wants to answer for any policy or any approach or any political undertaking that they bring to the table. They don't want to have to answer for it. It's hard. You got to think, normal things that we would hope these people would do. So politicians in memoriam have been trying to make sure that they don't have to answer to people. That is the unique structure of our Constitution and our way of governing. The United States has the patent on this. There are other countries that have done similar things, but we've got the patent. And that is what these people do not want to continue. They haven't wanted that for a long period of time, for most of the 20th century, almost the entire 20th century until now. They have been seeking to undermine this constitutional system, which made us honestly the greatest free country on the face of the earth and in world history, and the most prosperous economy in world history. They don't want that because it means that they can't have power and they can't control the narrative that keeps them in power and making the money that they make.
Yeah, and they can't control this narrative either, or CNN. If they thought that ABC had effectively controlled the narrative, and again, me saying this doesn't mean I think Trump won. He didn't advance, and so I don't think he won. And I think because he didn't advance, he lost. But when you see CNN pivot as fast as possible, I mean, they don't do this to the Taylor Swift endorsement. You know that they didn't think ABC did a good enough amount of work to make her somehow appealing in that presentation, or erase the doubts of people who think she's an airhead or a stoner or a wine mom, So instantly it's all about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, this is really going to move the needle. Taylor Swift. Really? They didn't want to talk about the substance of the debate, or 25 lies told by Kamala Harris, or 7 so-called fact checks by ABC moderators that all turned out to be false. They didn't want to talk about that anymore. Let's talk about Taylor, the Swifties who are going to vote for Kamala. But here's the problem. They were going to vote for her anyway.
Well, listen, Megyn Kelly pointed out after the debate last night that the ABC News president is close friends with Kamala Harris.
Yes.
This was entirely about setting Kamala Harris up and giving her another leg up after all the legs up she has, because she can't actually win elections. And we'll see and that's going to be tested here in November still. And one other thing to really put some light on this, you look at the Polymarket thing, which is the betting site that actually provides a decent way to figure out what the momentum is. And I think it's relatively accurate in terms of what's happening now. So what you saw there is Trump had been dominating that. It came back to even, and now the day after, it's back with him with a 3-point lead. And I think that's telling us what really happened here. Donald Trump did not destroy himself, but he didn't necessarily greatly help himself, other than that closing argument, which was fantastic, by the way, and he should have been doing all night. And so I'm still convinced that Trump can win this, but it's very close, and he could be running away. And he needs to get out there and talk about this economic message, because that's what's driving almost every bit of thinking of the electorate in this country.
And imagine if he had just said, instead of taking the bait, again, someone prepped him poorly or didn't prep him at all. Instead of just taking the bait, have just said, anybody want to talk about the economy? Does anybody here want to talk about the economy and the impact of 16 million illegal migrants on affordability for housing and inflation, regulatory inflation, money printing? Anybody here care about what it costs now to buy groceries for the month, something like that, which would have just exposed this charade, because it was a charade that was taking place last night. Kamala Harris didn't want to have hard answers. And it could have been a way for Trump to just simply throw the rules out, not take any of the bait, and just always bring it back to the issues that are his strongest. I don't know why he didn't do it. I think he was prepped poorly.
I don't know how well he was prepped. He also could have just got himself into an ire and that he didn't anticipate he was into. But I will say this, that you're absolutely right. Every single question, he should have just ignored what they said and said, no, I'm not talking about that. I mean, by the way, some of them he could have done. But listen, what are we talking about here, people? And so exactly like you're saying, I'm really convinced that it is necessary for Donald Trump to tell people that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris destroyed the economy and put us in a place where it doesn't matter if Haitians are killing cats or not. Let's just talk about, as Babylon Bee did, the women and children that are getting killed. Like that's on their watch. These are the messages that Americans want to hear about and that they care about.
Yeah, Democrats, dead Americans are, not a problem for Democrats. I appreciate the time, Jim Pfaff, Conservative Caucus, theconservativecaucus.com. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.